friends, thank you so much for making me a part of your day. I'm thrilled to be doing this video and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The topic is a full face of products that are my most recommended out in everyday life. I do get questions quite a bit from family, friends, teachers, sometimes people I randomly come face to face with in a makeup aisle. A text here, a question there, and it's like, I do have some things that I've recommended quite a bit to people. And also there are people who just might message me personally through other forms of social media, like, what do you think about this or that? So I thought you might just be interested to know what kinds of things come up and get recommended under those everyday life kinds of circumstances. So I've got a full bag of it. I'm sticking to Drugstore here, and I do feel like that's the basis for a lot of the things I'm asked about. Even if a person, let's say they're asking for a concealer recommendation and they don't specifically say it needs to be Drugstore, I feel like I kind of default to recommending Drugstore because A, I think the quality is completely out there and I don't think you're sacrificing anything on any of the products I'm talking about here, which it's crazy, but that's the truth. And I don't just assume that people want to spend an arm and a leg on something when they could spend just a fraction of the amount. There was someone local here who messaged me on Facebook and their daughter was getting into like a theater program in the high school and she was going to be doing makeup and she was like asking for stage makeup recommendations. And I'm like, I don't know about stage makeup, but I do know about a long list of Drugstore things that I think have great coverage, long wear, and would come off great in a theater setting, you know? And I think it surprises people sometimes, but it's really the heart of my channel and I believe in those recommendations. You know, I thought I was gonna wear this headband, but with my hair being short now, it's all flopping forward every time I move my head. Ooh, let's do my dollar store one. I got this makeup headband at Dollar Tree. I feel like I've recommended this primer a whole lot. Talk about products that are getting down to the bottom for me. The Maybelline Perfector 4-in-1. So this is one of those kind of glowy primers. I have recently very highly praised the Rimmel Multitasker. I feel like this is a little thicker in texture and a little more coverage to it. This is thinner and has really proven itself as being a good partner to lots of different foundations in terms of staying power, which is not really a claim of the product, but it's been kind of like the happy result of using it. So gosh, I need to twist this up some more. I wear the shade Light in this, and I don't know if you can tell as I'm streaking across, it's kind of like a mixture of a little bit of glow and a little bit of a coverage type of tone. And it can be a really good first step, or maybe you want to even stop there, but I'm taking my brush. And you'll see this evens me out a little bit, maybe not quite as much as the Multitasker, but a big thing about it for me is just how well it works paired with countless other foundations from the Drugstore. You see what I'm talking about with this? If you're not familiar with glowy primer types of products, like you're not expecting a great deal of coverage out of them, but you're kind of noting that there's a little bit of evening out. I'm still seeing nose redness. I'm still seeing like my little problem areas that I'd use concealer on, but it's kind of a nice prep step really. And this adds a light bit of moisture to my skin too, on top of the skincare I've already applied. When it comes to foundations, a lot of times somebody's asking for one, but then I have to ask back, like, what's your skin type? What are your skin concerns? What kind of coverage do you like? And a lot of times my recommendation can come back to this because sometimes people aren't even really sure. That's the thing. Like, we just assume everybody has their little description card of their skin type just at the ready, and sometimes people don't really know. But usually people can tell me if they want lightweight or fuller, but this is something that kind of falls in the middle in terms of the weight on the skin. It's the L'Oreal True Match Nude Hyaluronic Tinted Serum. I've put a pump in that came from Amazon. Otherwise, this comes with a dropper. That's the way you see it in store. My shade is 2-3 Light, but this is a product that does a really good job of giving some very satisfying coverage that doesn't look too heavy. It is kind of satiny. It lasts really well, which most everybody wants good staying power, you know, but not everybody wants maybe the most matte option or the fullest of the full coverage. And this is a pretty darn good option because it gives some, like I said, very satisfying coverage, good staying power, and a look on the skin that's not really unnatural whatsoever. So I go for a full pump of this. Yes, I do plan to repurchase, but I'm just waiting till I get a true empty out of it. And I've still got like, I don't know, an inch of product down in the bottom. But these two products together, I've done videos a long time ago, over a year ago, year and a half, talking about the combination of these two and how well they do work together. So yes, highly recommended. And there have been other times where I've been able to recommend, you know, Wet n Wild Photo Focus Matte or CoverGirl Outlast. That's one I've recommended a lot because staying power is just impeccable and the person maybe has more oily skin and really need to fight that. So there's different recommendations for foundation just depending, but this is one where maybe if they can't even specifically give me a list of preferences and qualities of their skin, I could recommend this and say, I think you're going to get along well with it. Like, look how pretty this is on my skin, just blended out, one pump. Very skin evening, not unnatural, not super glowy. We have paired it with a primer that gives us a little bit of glow, which is very natural and happens to be, again, not even a claim of the product, but happens to be, I think, one of my most reliable long wear foundations. And it's kind of cool to see that in a product that also isn't touting full coverage. Like, this has very, very good coverage, but a lot of times we think long wear and full coverage are two things that must go hand in hand. We see them so frequently touted together in a product, and this is one of those kind of unique situations where, yeah, it really does happen to be long wear, but without really heavy coverage. So yeah, lots of people have gotten along great with that. I've heard tons of positive feedback back on it. As far as concealer goes, if there is somebody wanting a dark circle recommendation, this is where I'm telling them to go specifically. The e.l.f. Putty Color Correcting Eye Brightener. I wear the shade Fair, and it's giving you this pinky tone, and it's really just incredibly similar to the Becca and Smashbox Under Eye Brightening product. The texture is so good, you press into it. So when it's brand new, it's very flat and you get some off the surface, you're thinking, oh, it's kind of thin and light. Well, there's actually a pretty rich creaminess to this. You just gotta press down, mush into the product and creamify it, really, and it will show up for you in that way. But if someone's telling me, like, I can't handle the dark circles, there's nothing that works on it, I will recommend something like this. And in a darker tone too, if their skin tone would do better with that. See how I pat that in, and look how good this area looks right now. Sometimes people just have some really deep set eyes. It's not necessarily that they've got so much darkness, but their eyes are just kind of set back in a bit more. And an extra little brightening step like this can do a lot of good. Look at that, so good. This is just a little Sephora 71 brush, but any kind of compact concealer brush, just to press that in. For some reason I put some here between the brows to brighten that area up. But that works very well for some people. That could be just a stopping point if you have nowhere else on your face you want to conceal. But I would say right up there with people asking for foundation recommendations is people wanting concealer recommendations. And I've probably recommended e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer more than anything else. I wear light peach in this, and I am going to use this today. Even though I feel like really nicely covered by what I just did, I'm going to give myself just little dots. And, you know, I do try to tell people a little goes a long way with the product. No big swipes with it, just little dots, as little as you can manage to get off of the doe foot. And you'll be surprised at how much those little dots do spread. But the hydrating version I think is very special. And if somebody's saying I'm extra dry in this area, I know this is where we're going. But then also, like my sister-in-law Sarah just a couple weeks ago, she had an injury to her face and she needed a good concealer. And I was like, get e.l.f. Camo Concealer. And if you're dry and if you need a little extra moisture, get the hydrating version, you know, but both will give you pretty much the max coverage at a drugstore price. So yeah, I'm just dabbing this in actually with yet another Sephora concealer brush at 57. I don't usually reach for this. I don't know why I just grabbed for it. But we're spreading it out and then just kind of tap over it, tap it in. A lot of times I'll go for a brush that might be double-ended and I can spread out with the smaller end and then tap over it with the larger end, like really strictly just pressing it in with that larger part. And what you find is you preserve your coverage really nicely there. And why am I so all about the small amount applied? Because we see videos where people are doing like giant swipes. You don't need a lot of concealer. You just don't. With some of these potent formulas, I mean, this is the trend from a lot of drugstore brands, is something like this that is very potent and like little goes a long way. The Revlon Color Stay Flex Wear, I've recommended that as well, but this is like my all-time probably most recommended. But with most concealers that I would say are good to use and will give you a really good result, you just need to be using a little bit. It might just be a tiny dot, but that dot can be spread, as you saw. And also, I used a little under eye corrector prior to it, and now, look, I mean, you can't pick apart the under eye. Well, I'm sure somebody out there can, but you know. Okay, talking setting powders. You guys know, Maybelline Fit Me. I mean, I talk about it all the time on my channel. A lot of times what I talk about here on my channel is what is translating into everyday life when someone's asking me about products. I don't feel like I get asked about powder an awful lot, but I do really recommend that people set under eye concealer at least a little bit. Now, I've really gotten into using these powder puffs, and they can pack on kind of a substantial amount of powder. And for right now, as it stands for my skin, that's working for me. I can look really flawless up in this area. But if you really want to keep it light, you know, use a small brush that isn't going to hold a lot of product, like maybe a Real Techniques setting brush. You can just lightly get some powder on one of those and have the lightest setting ever. If you really feel like any amount of powder is going to make me look old, if that's your stance with it, use a brush. But this just gives me really good staying power, and my skin, for the time being, can take it. I've pressed that into the under eye and around my T-zone, and then I just take an additional brush. This is a little Morphe under eye bullet brush. I link to every brush I use in order below the video in the extra info section. So if you're on a phone, you kind of have to expand that section, like maybe with a couple of clicks, but you will see all products listed, linked, all the brushes linked, my disclaimer about affiliate links, whether or not any products were sent to me for free by brands. I include a meaningful quote called Profound Thought and a random thought from myself in the bottom, and just all my general links to social media, my links to my buddy David if you're in need of Estee Lauder. My info box is like my world, just in a section there. But here's how the skin's looking right now with a great foundation, primer, concealers that I love, a perfect setting powder. I will say I do get asked about mattifying quite a bit, and Rimmel Stay Matte is a big recommendation for me. This shade is Creamy Natural, but like if somebody's wanting to just have a general thing that could work for under eye setting powder, but also can go over the skin and really help with looking matte, staying matte, as the name implies. I think this is a great little option. It's been around a long time in the drugstore. And a special thing about this powder is it's hard to screw up. You put a brush in, you don't see any clouds developing, do you? It's a firmly pressed powder, but an effective powder. So you get pretty much the bare minimum you need on your brush, and by the time that touches your skin, you're not looking too caked up and like too much. So I always feel pretty safe in recommending that. If somebody's wanting a mattifying powder, but not something that's like a powder foundation. Bronzer, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Shady Beaches from Wet n Wild. Absolutely love this bronzer. Now I would have to say Rimmel Natural Bronzer is up there too. That's going all the way back to my Kaylee days. Kaylee just contacted me the other day and she was like, this video cracked me up, and she had rewatched one of the videos we'd done together, talking about her makeup and her makeup bag and stuff. And way back in the day when we were both new to the TV station, I remembered being in a Walgreens with her and advising her to get Rimmel Natural Bronzer. And I'm pretty sure she used that thing till it was pure silver pan left behind. So that's a good one. And if you've got really fair skin, I think that's a very good one. But if you want your bronzer to do just a little bit extra, this is a very pigmented, rich, good bronzer. Wet n Wild, you know, they've got a great powder formula going among their bronzers and their blushes. I don't think I get asked about bronzer that frequently, but yet when I was thinking about the topic for this video, I immediately knew what the thing was, you know, that I've recommended a bunch. Everybody's idea of how frequently you get asked about makeup is probably different, but I do get asked about makeup a lot in my daily life, and I like talking about it. I like answering questions about it. I like hearing about somebody's need and pointing them in the right direction. I would not be opposed to just chilling in the aisles of Walmart for an hour and just being around if somebody needed a tip on something. So as you can see, we're taking that around the hairline. I haven't really talked about how I'm doing it, but gently contouring the cheek area there. I was watching my friend Kevin, who had done like a really good video on his YouTube channel, like a Q&A, Confessions of a Former News Anchor. And anytime I use bronzer, especially powder bronzer, like I think about my news days and how much I used back then, because the lighting was so bright and you would think as you were getting ready, like this is definitely enough bronzer. And then you look back on yourself from anchoring that day and be like, I needed more. And you do it like everywhere. I had a big, like, giant pan of Laura Geller. It was called Baked Body Frosting, and I would put that stuff on with a puff, like, and a lot of times that was on top of having self-tanned or whatever. It took a lot. I'll have to link to Kevin's video below because he had some fun stories to tell about how he kind of got through the ranks of the news business to end up where he was, and his decision to leave the news business. Just some of the fun times we had, funny times too. So there's that. gentle contour. I use this lightly, I feel like today, but this bronzer can be used on a pretty intense level as well. And I think that is why I've probably recommended it a lot, because people in varying skin tones ask for a bronzer. I know this can work for a lighter skin tone into even a tan skin tone. For blush recommendations, I almost pulled out the Wet n Wild Color Icon blushes because those are great and I certainly have recommended those. But then I thought, think back, like step back even further. What is an all-time thing that you have recommended blush-wise? Instant Cheekbones from CoverGirl with the included highlighter in there. Several great shades. I hope they never get rid of these. I checked on Walmart's website. I'm like, they are still making these, right? Yes, they've still got multiple shades. There's a plum, the rose, a peach, and the sable one that's kind of more neutral. Got the refined rose right here. You're getting 2 tones of blush. They're like satin finish blushes. So I think they're very goof proof. You know, this is the way I feel about a lot of Laura Geller blushes, although they're pretty high in pigment, but definitely Hourglass blushes. They've got sometimes that little bit of shimmer that just makes the blending really flawless, even if you're not great at it. And just that hint of sheen that looks so healthy on the cheeks. So I'm just going into that middle shade so far and applying that. These are a total hidden gem. These are a total, like, would you believe it? But I'm gonna recommend something called CoverGirl Instant Cheekbones to you. And then people get back to me like, I love this so much. So you got the 1 tone of blush, and then you're like, okay, but I wanna go a little deeper. I want a little bit more. Give me more. Take the deeper one. Maybe you position it slightly lower or just, you know, straight on top of what you did. Looking so good. Again, this is the rose. This is the most pinky one, although the plummy one gives some pink as well. Excellent. Perfection. Take it right over the nose if you want to. But then there's this little highlighter. Before highlighter was cool, before every single brand had its highlighter that it was selling, CoverGirl was doing this. Okay, they had this shimmery thing here that's not too shimmery. I want to make sure I'm in focus for this. Can you even handle? Okay, and then I'm dusting off here because I don't want too much applied. I just want to blend what I put on there. That soft focus, gentle glow of the cheek, that's part of a very affordable blush trio. Absolutely. I'm going to keep singing this one's praises as long as it's being sold in the drugstore. It's so good. You're like, I want to wear highlighter, but I got problem areas and I got fine lines and I got pores. Easy. This. So good. Kind of reminding me of if Laura Geller Baked French Vanilla was just a little more shimmery than she is. I love it. And that's a Real Techniques setting brush I'm using on that. That was the brush that I mentioned you could use if you wanted the lightest possible under eye setting. For a setting mist, this has recently kind of taken over for me. And you might have not seen me use this a lot in recent videos because I know I'm getting down low in my bottle and I'm kind of trying to conserve it. But it's the Infallible 3-Second Setting Mist. It smells like hairspray. The aerosol nature of it all definitely makes you think hairspray, but it does work. It absolutely works to help your makeup last longer. If you see people online and they're raving about a brand called One Size from Sephora, this is the absolute answer to that stuff. So I'm going to do it. 3 seconds, you go psh. You can just feel the mist getting all parts of your face and you're smelling the hairsprayness of it all, and it's might be a little off-putting, but I'm telling you, if you're saying, I need it to last, I would have to throw this up as the option. And we could get into a whole other conversation if you're wanting a mist that's more hydrating or whatever, but usually somebody's asking me about setting spray and wanting something that wears a long time or makes your makeup wear a long time. Let's talk brows. This little friend here has taken over for my brow recommendations. In fact, I got one for Mom. I got the shade Blonde and she likes it a lot. The CoverGirl Clean Fresh Brow, the Nano Pencil, the skinniest pencil ever, skinnier than a Brow Wiz. I feel like CoverGirl has some good technology going here, and I should have sprayed that mist after brows because I forget it sets my brows in place. That's okay, we'll make it work. The first thing I thought going in when I first tried this was that if it's so skinny, isn't it gonna just take me longer to get my desired result in my brows? And for my brows, you see, I do have a decent amount of brows sitting there on my face before I even started, and this is able to get within those existing hairs and really pinpoint the areas where I need a fill-in. And I feel like ultimately I end up putting less product in my brows. I'm using less and spending less time because I'm getting directly to the areas that need a fill. You know what I mean? And it has the spoolie on the other end so you can kind of brush them up and see how you did and all that jazz. Fill in some more if need be. But I love this thing, and I feel like I've recommended it left and right for people wanting a brow product, and I was pleased to see that there was a shade that worked well for Mom, who is completely different coloring from me and usually goes for like a taupe in a brow wiz. She said the blonde was good for her, and that was what the lightest shade in this was called. But yeah, recommendations really come back to, I think, how specific can the person get with me about what they need and how in tune with their own skin type are they? Or maybe even tell me some things you've been using recently that you've liked. That's a good question to ask before recommending something, and you can kind of see what their expectations are. This is not going in the best today because I've sprayed that spray. I feel like it's not going in super evenly. And now Kitten wants to play fetch. I can use this little spoolie. Should have maybe done that first. But sometimes you feel like you're kind of like a makeup doctor, you know? You're hearing about someone's problems, you're trying to determine the issue they've been having, and you're going to tell them about the thing that they can get that's going to make it all better. Your prescription is Milani Eyeshadow Primer, friends. So anyway, there's that brow pencil. I've recommended this a bunch too, Brow Fast Sculpt, because I've been talking about this for years. Going back to 2020, if not a little before, Maybelline Brow Fast Sculpt, also you may find it labeled as Express Brow, but it's the brush that has the two sides, the longer bristles and the shorter bristles. Longer bristles, which is what I'm going for right now, are gonna just fluff you up. The hold is incredible, and it's got that tint, so this is medium brown. This is just an amazing staying power move to use this on top of your brow look or as the only part of your brow look if you've got a lot of strong brow just there. And you don't need an ultra pinpointed fill-in. There's probably been a handful of quick makeup looks I've done on my channel where I've just used this solo and it worked. But the one end for fluffing and then the other end for applying more product. The shorter bristles are good about laying more down. Like maybe I look at my brow and I'm like, I could use a little more right there. Well, I'm going off of the end now that's got the shorter bristles and it's gonna lay down more. One of the smartest brush designs in makeup, period. As far as included applicators in products, this is the winner. Next up, we're talking eyeshadow. I apologize to anybody who's come to me and asked for an eyeshadow recommendation, and I didn't hand in hand with that say, but you also need eyeshadow primer because you do. So Milani eyeshadow primer, a tiny bit. You're not using a lot of this product, so a little bitty bead of it, and then you mush that out between two fingers. First priority is lid, but do feel yourself getting that applied through the crease as well and up beyond if there's anything left still. It's a fine line with eyeshadow primers. I always say over application can mean you get the very result you don't want, which is creasing, but perfect application can mean all day wear and just enough tack there to grab the shadow, make it more intense, make any cheap shadow stand out a lot more and cling on better. And I need a good basic eyeshadow recommendation from the drugstore for everyday wear. This. Wet n Wild Walking on Eggshells. I'll be so sad if this ever goes away or if they change it again, because this is a product that has been changed so many times over the years. It started as a trio that only contained like the shimmery aspects of this palette, and then it turned into a quad. This is the best version yet. If you're just wanting the basic everyday look and you're not wanting too many options and you're not wanting to pay for a higher priced palette, like this can so do the job for you. And I will show you that today. I have a brush that kind of needs to be cleaned. It's still a little pinky purpley from the other day, but we'll do our best there. So you got a little matte started out shade right here. I'm going to dip into that and I'm going to start applying that to my crease. Just back and forth, real easy. This would be the eye look for any occasion, I guess is what I'm doing today. The eye look that could suit a job interview, the eye look that could get you through a day of teaching, the eye look that's appropriate for church or the potluck at your neighbor's house, just whatever. You just couldn't name a situation that Walking on Eggshells doesn't work for, so I always feel safe in recommending this. Okay, we're buffed out with that shade right there, the lightest matte. And then we could go over to this cream. Did I mistakenly say this was a matte cream? It's got a little shimmer in it. And you're just gonna kind of lightly apply that, like I'm getting the bare minimum on my brush, even tapping it on my skin because I don't want that swath of shimmer under the brow that makes me think of one certain individual from high school who always had that. That's step 2. Step 3, we could do a couple different things. If we wanted to just deepen up in a more gradual sense, we could go to this shimmer right here. It's kind of a dark bronzy brown shimmer with that same brush we've been using, the Profusion crease brush. All brushes are linked. And you're just going to kind of shimmy that into your crease. Not quite as freely as we did that first shade because this is a little darker, right? But we're going back and forth and we're hitting that whole crease. And see what it looks like if you just darkened it a little bit. Kitten's not even asking me to play fetch. She's just listening, hanging on my every word about this eyeshadow. When I say shimmy it, I mean I'm just like wedging and just... Okay, not a lot of intense blending even needs to take place here. Once your brush is pretty bare, you might just kind of go over the edge. But that's that. Your crease is set up and ready to go. Now a flat brush or a sponge tip applicator and the dark matte brown. A little bit of that. Patting on the outer part of your lid. If you're a really young beginner, this is not always my first recommendation because of the intensity of the brown. So I might recommend something that's a little bit softer. It just doesn't get quite so dark. But for most people who are coming to me, I'm talking about this. So I've patted that on my lid. I've made sure my brush is reaching the full surface area of the lid all the way to that crease line. I'm touching that and I'm putting product in that too because I know what's coming next. The small pointed brush from Profusion, which comes in the same set as the crease brush. If only they'd put a flat brush in it like that. I tell you, Profusion, if you're listening, a brush like that in with this trio. That's everything anybody needs right there. Anyways, I've got this brush pretty bare right now, and I'm just swirling it into the stuff that was applied to the crease. Now, if you didn't get much product touching your crease, you might need to dip into that dark brown. But I know I put some there, and now this brush is just kind of moving it around. If you are one who has come to me for makeup recommendations and you haven't tried Wet n Wild since like the year 2000, you're maybe thinking like, really? You're recommending Wet n Wild eyeshadow? Some people are surprised. Oh, Wet n Wild is on it. Okay, I was just able to take a dark brown that was originally applied to my lid and just a little bit into my crease and take this little brush and just let it ride out like that in a really blended, really smooth way. There's pigment here, y'all. If it's been a while for you, yes, Wet n Wild has changed, and they changed the game for all the other brands' eyeshadows. And if you do all that and you're like, I need more blending, go back to that crease brush. It doesn't have much on it by now. See, that works. Then I'm taking a little smaller flat brush, or this could be the other side of a sponge tip applicator that you're using. I usually go into this one, so it looks a little bit pinky. It's got a gentle shimmer, not an off-the-wall shimmer. And it's just kind of brightening. And I put that over the inner half of my lid and just let it touch the darkness there. There's your everyday eye. You could also smudge a dark shade on your lower lash line for a little more drama, a little more definition. That's up to you. But this is elite drugstore eyeshadow. And maybe this will be the thing that makes you feel like, you know, maybe I want to try another shade of that Wet n Wild. Maybe I can graduate from walking on eggshells and get into Nude Awakening or something else. Yeah, you go for it. But this is everything for the basic everyday works for anything. And it's dark enough to give you that lift. See the lift we've created by bringing darkness above the crease line and up and out a little bit? That's where I was directing things. When I brought in this little brush with nothing on it and just blended that dark brown, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking up and out, up and out. Generally with eyeliner recommendations, I've steered a lot of people toward Milani and the Stay Put range. They have the little inkwell design, which I gotta say, years back, it was better than it was more recently. However, I still have great luck with the pen. And if you're starting out and you need a liquid liner, or you're coming to me and you're like, I have to use false lashes, what does it take to do good false lashes? Well, you kind of need to base that false lash look with some liquid liner, and a pen is the easiest way to do it. It gives you the most control, the most ease. So the Stay Put Tank eyeliner, you can get black, this is brown. This is really the way to go if you're needing that type of thing. So I can just go across my lash line, and I always say in my videos, if you're going across and maybe you get up a little higher than your actual lash line, that's okay. Just go back and fill it in like you're coloring in a picture. Okay, but you do need to get right up to those lashes. Feel like you're almost touching those lashes because it needs to seem like that liner is the origin of the lashes. The darkest part needs to be touching the lashes. That's what your liner's all about. And then you look like you have a thicker, bolder lash line. So you can do it in little strokes. You can do it in one fell swoop, whatever works for you. Oftentimes I take one big stroke and then I go in and I make sure I'm really close into those eyelashes. And I've loved using the brown, frankly. It's so close to black. I dig it. And the tip is long, and you can like kind of use it practically in stamping mode to touch up those little areas you might have missed. Now, I know for mascara, I feel like I've gone through a lot. I've had a lot of different good ones for me here lately, but in terms of recommended mascaras, something I feel like I've talked about a lot, just like in person to somebody or in a text. Lash Paradise. It's kind of the fullness and fluffiness that it gives the lashes. A lot of people have gotten along well with that recommendation. I have one here. It's actually the latte brown one. If it's looking too brown to me at the end, I might top off with just a different black mascara, but I feel like Lash Paradise has been a major recommendation for me just over the course of years. And this goes out of Drugstore, but people needing a really good tubing mascara, I have recommended Cali Ray Come Hell or High Water a lot. But I don't know, there's something about this one and the way it builds your lashes up. I don't have a ton of lashes, like I'm not as thick with them as I'd like to be, and you always feel like after you get done using Lash Paradise, like wow, that really made what I've got there kind of stand out, look alive, you know? Most of the time when somebody's asking me for a makeup recommendation, there's like a specific thing that they want, one specific part of the routine, like a foundation or a concealer or, you know, a brow pencil or something like that. But there are some occasions where somebody has needed a full face, and there are times where I do like say, hey, I have a video that's going to answer all your questions on that. Or I'll give them the recommendations and then I'll be like, here's the video that has more. I don't expect people to know my entire library of content when they ask me a question, you know? If they ask me something, I might have like the video that addresses the very specific thing that they asked me for, but I'll still share the recommendation. But it's like, and then here's the link if you want me to ramble on that recommendation. A lot of times I search my own YouTube channel. Like if somebody's got a specific thing and I'm like, I think I did a video about that, I use the search function within my own channel. So, or I just type it into YouTube, Emily Noel false eyelashes or Emily Noel neutral palettes, and remind myself of what I got out there. I've done so many videos. So I do want this to look a little blacker. So I'm just going to take a random black mascara that I got. I've loved this one as of late, and I don't think I've had the occasion to recommend it to anybody in my personal life yet, but the I Love Extreme Volume Mascara is really good. Wow, it's building on that L'Oreal really nicely there. Okay, noted. Sometimes I get asked like, how do you remember things about makeup so much? And it's because I love makeup. There's certainly a lot of other information that passes through my brain in a day that I do not latch onto. But I remember getting my Wet n Wild Ultimate Expressions eyeshadow palette in Walgreens in Carbondale on Wall Street shortly after we moved to Southern Illinois. Like, I remember that. I remember being in that store when I found out that they revamped their formula further beyond that. Makeup is meaningful to me. It always has been, it always will be. I'll always remember going on little drugstore trips with Pup and grabbing a new shade of the Revlon Super Lustrous Lip Gloss when it was in the kind of squared off packaging. You know, you'd also like find a legit good magazine with some good makeup content in it because you didn't have YouTube yet. And then you get some lemon heads and call it a day. Okay, I've loaded those lashes up. Clearly I'm doing kind of an upper eye focused look today, but you could totally smudge some of that dark brown shadow on your lower lash line or some of the medium bronze shade from the Walking on Eggshells, either of those two down in here if you like your eye a little bit more defined all around. But now we're moving on to lips, and without a doubt my number one most recommended lip thing just out in my everyday life are the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink Crayons. I've had people need a good red recommendation, a good long wearing red. It's called Own Your Empire, right? Yep, Own Your Empire. I love these sticks. They twist up. They're extremely long wearing, but they're more user-friendly than just liquid lipsticks. And at the bottom, you got a little sharpener tip. You can keep that thing defined if you want it to be really like the precision of a lip liner. I will forever love this format of a lip product, a chubby stick. But I have a wardrobe of these. Okay, so I've got a great red, I've got a great hot pink recommendation, I've got a good berry from this line. But my top two most recommended, my mother-in-law was here a couple of weeks ago. She asked me to do her makeup and I used Lead the Way. So many people love this one. This was the first one I ever used from this line. And it is the wearable pink. It adds a little life to your complexion and it's a soft-ish shade, but it wears a really long time. This must be the mother-in-law lip color because I remember like Pup asking me for something, a certain kind of color that was just like this that her mother-in-law needed and I said, Lead the Way. Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink Crayon. I'll put it on for you. You'll see why. Look at this shade. Deep enough to stand out, not so dark that it's like anybody would think that's really intense. It's a great one. It's a great one. And a really beautiful thing about this formula is how it kind of thins out on your lips. This is matte. Yes, matte is in the name, but as it applies, it just feels like easy. There's no pull, no tug. So love that. And I am down here in Southern Illinois and we are Saluki country, SIU, Southern Illinois University. And I do get asked about a good lip color for your dog's games. Get Live on the Edge. Absolutely adore this shade. We're talking like this sort of burgundy, little bit brownish. They do have some great berry options, but this is not berry, you know? It's just like darkened, dusty rose. And I can add some into this lip look if you want me to. I'm not taking too much away from Lead the Way that was already there, but just kind of blend two of these shades in together before they really set up. Isn't that great? If I was like coaching the SIU cheerleading squad, I'd say everybody needs this one. But yeah, my friends, that about sums it up. Makeup that I really, really stand behind and have recommended to friends and family and just anybody who I've encountered in my everyday life who's approached me about a makeup question. Teachers, I feel like I've talked with a lot of teachers about makeup, and you really don't want to steer a teacher wrong, you know? Like, I can't believe how much I adore all of the teachers my kids have gotten to have. And these are people who are going through their full days, busy as heck, no doubt, like not a lot of downtime. If they would have some downtime, I doubt they want to spend it like touching up a makeup look. So yeah, I really don't ever want to steer anybody wrong on any level for sure. But yeah, teachers need like the best recommendations, don't they? So thank you all so much for taking time to watch. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it entertaining and informative. And another thing that I probably should mention, I do get asked about brushes quite often, and I do steer people a lot to Profusion. Usually somebody's needing something to apply foundation with, and there's a little set of like Profusion brushes that contains this and a couple of good little powder brushes. So that's something. And then the eye brushes that I always talk about in my videos, the crease brush, the small pointed brush. These are things you can get in little $10 trios from Walmart. So yeah, that's my take, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today, and I will see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.